All right, a big election is coming up, quote-unquote big. I think anytime we get a chance to vote, it's something we should take advantage of, and especially when there are important amendments on the ballot. And we decided, all right, let's bring on our great friend and expert who can sort of delve into these for us. And you've heard me talk about an organization that I think is doing a great job, and that is LACAG. You can check out the details at LACAG.org. And one of the great leaders of the Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group is our friend Chris Alexander, who's with us here on the Ringside Politics Hotline. And hey, Chris, good morning, sir. How goes it?
Good morning, Jeff. How are you this Good Friday?
Oh, I'm doing great. And thank you so much for the time. I know that, LACAG has had just a great growth over the past few months, and you've got all kind of people now going to the website regularly for information. And I just wanted you to just sort of share, before we get into the amendments, a little bit about the mission, the purpose of the Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group.
Sure. Our central purpose, Jeff, is to track the actions of rhino Republicans in the legislature who are killing very good conservative legislation and promoting bad conservative legislation, whether it's vaccine mandates, speech censorship, election integrity, education, school choice, whatever the issues are. We have a group of rhino Republicans in the legislature who are undermining the agenda that the vast majority of Louisianans agree with. And we are exposing that publicly, and we are holding them accountable. And that is our mission, and that's what we're doing. And we are making a lot of progress and growing very rapidly.
Yeah, and these legislators aren't used to that. They aren't used to a watchdog really holding their feet to the fire, are they?
No, they're not. And it is something that was just recently proven in a state Senate race down in District 17, where a conservative Republican, Caleb Kleinpeter, beat an establishment Democrat in a largely Democrat district. And he did it in a primary because groups like ours and others effectively informed the voters about what the incumbent was actually doing in the legislature, and they didn't like it. And he beat him in the primary. And so that is, I think, a bellwether race. So it's a really, really, really good sign.
I like your motto. If you're a rhino in Louisiana, LACAG is coming for you. That's great.
Amen. And we're doing it without apology.
Yeah, that's awesome. Much needed. Okay, so I hate how they structure these things, but we had 8 amendments on the ballot in November. We talked to you about all of those in detail. We wanted to have you back on to talk about the additional 3 amendments that they put on the ballot for December the 10th. And Chris, the turnout is going to be minuscule, so we need people to go vote, and we need to tell them that these amendments are important. And with your cooperation, I'd like to go through them one by one, starting with the first one, which will provide that no person who is not a citizen of the United States shall be allowed to register and vote in this state. Some would say, Chris Alexander, why is this necessary? Isn't this already the law of the land?
Well, it's the law. The Louisiana Constitution right now provides that only Louisiana citizens can vote in Louisiana elections. But there's no specific provision that prohibits non-citizens, U.S. citizens, from voting in Louisiana elections. Now, many would say that it is implied, but there are local municipalities across the country, 15 of them, who are allowing non-citizens to vote in local elections. There is a massive assault on our border. We have millions of illegal immigrants coming into the country, and there's a massive push by the left to allow them to vote in local elections. Under these circumstances, the added protection of wording in the Constitution that specifically prohibits non-U.S. citizens from voting in any Louisiana election is very necessary. And we are for it for that reason. We need the added protection to make it very clear. And
because,
it's very important.
You make a good point. You said these 15 municipalities across the country. I can see maybe a council in Shreveport, Baton Rouge, and especially New Orleans trying to push to allow, non-citizens to vote in those areas where you have left-wing leadership here in the state of Louisiana.
That's exactly right, Jeff. And all the amendment does is specifically prohibit any non-U.S. citizen from voting in any Louisiana election, period. It needs to be spelled out explicitly to close off any theoretical loophole that may exist in our Constitution right now.
I think you're exactly right about that, and I think it is important, and for this reason alone, everyone should go out and vote for Amendment Number 1, even you might not think it's likely. We need to just add that added level of protection, no doubt about it. So that is a big yes for Amendment Number 1. Amendment Number 2, to make appointed members of the State Civil Service Commission subject to confirmation by the Louisiana Senate. Tell us about that, if you could.
Right now, Jeff, the governor of Louisiana has complete, unchecked power to appoint very powerful administrators, like the several commissions, the board, the Civil Service Board. The governor can appoint the head of that or any member of it without any legislative oversight whatsoever. And this bill, these amendments 2 and 3, would require the Senate to ratify and approve any governor appointment, period. And it is so important. It's important that the governor not have unchecked power. And many argue that, well, the Senate's not, they're just going to rubber stamp the governor anyway. Well, maybe they will, but at least this gives them the authority and the power to oversee governor appointments. And it's consistent with the separation of powers doctrine in the Constitution, and we're going to demand that the Senate do its job. So these 2 amendments are very important because it will allow the Senate to oversee and approve governor appointments to very powerful boards. So the amendments are important, and we're going to put pressure on the state Senate to do its job.
You make a good point, because here in Louisiana we have this all-powerful governor, and the governor has way too much power, and the legislature many times is just a lapdog, a rubber stamp. They don't feel like they have enough authority to really challenge the governor. Anything we can do to give them more power to sort of equalize the powers of the different branches and to have more oversight to an appointment, I think is very important. So I agree. I think we definitely need to support Amendment Number 2, which requires the consent of the state Senate for confirmation of the governor's appointments to the Civil Service Commission. No doubt about it. All right. Amendment Number 3, to make appointed members of the State Police Commission subject to confirmation by the Louisiana Senate. A very similar issue, correct?
Yes, very similar issue, and the same rationale applies. State Senate oversight, ratification of governor's nominees to the State Police Commission. It's a very powerful commission, and, there's an old saying, Jeff, that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And when there is legislative oversight, which the Senate is constitutionally required to exercise, then it creates more transparency in the process and prevents corruption in government. And that's why we support Amendment Number 3 as well.
I agree completely. So 1, 2, and 3, we all need to support, get out there and vote for. I think they're steps in the right direction, and certainly something that I think we should all get behind. Chris, hang on. We're going to take a brief time out. I know you want to address also another issue concerning a specific politician. So let's get into that when we come back. Chris Alexander with us of LACAG. And that is the Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group. And, of course, the people do need a lobbyist. We want to keep our elected officials accountable to the Constitution and to the citizens of Louisiana. If whose concerns and values have been ignored for too long. It's time to take our state back. Louisiana first. I like it. Quick time out. We'll be right back.